How often does the Department of Home Affairs conduct raids against undocumented foreign nationals? Does the department treat undocumented foreign nationals in the same manner? Are these raids effective in reducing the number of these undocumented foreign nationals in the country? And why were some sections of the new immigration laws put on hold? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. The Department of Home Affairs continues to face various challenges in its quest to make South Africa a safe country for all who live in it. As a custodian, protector and verifier of the identity and status of citizens and other persons resident in the country, the department has recently put some sections of the new immigration laws on hold in order to ensure that they do not have a negative impact on tourism and the country's relations with others. But will the department ever win the fight against undocumented foreign nationals? My guest today is Home Affairs Minister Malusi Knowledge Nkanyezi Gigaba. Minister, welcome to the show. Before we go into the program, let us firstly have a look at this insert.
Go out. The police are ordering you to go out.
The Department of Home Affairs, together with the Johannesburg Metro Police earlier this week, conducted an unannounced raid on a shopping center in Johannesburg. The shopping center, mainly run by Chinese nationals, hosts scores of illegal immigrants. Amid much resistance and attempt to bribe their way out, dozens of illegals were arrested and detained during this operation. The Department of Home Affairs is having to deal with the public perception that it targets Africans for deportations while ignoring illegal Chinese, white Europeans and Pakistanis. However, undermining the success of such operations is the inconsistency with which they are undertaken. This renders such efforts are quickly successful only for the detained to find their way back into South Africa soon after deportation. The question is, how much damage are these illegals doing to South Africa, and are these raids helping in any way?
Minister, fortunately, this program, Question Time, was part of that raid. And perhaps one would start by wanting to check with you, how much of a problem are these undocumented foreign nationals in the country?
The phenomenon of undocumented foreign nationals is a big challenge in South Africa, particularly because we are the most advanced economy on the continent. We therefore attract high volumes of foreign nationals of different sorts, documented and undocumented. We're a country, we are one of the two countries with the largest volumes of inflows and outflows of mixed forms of migrants. In that way, it presents us with an enormous challenge. At the same time, we are a country that has received the largest volumes of asylum seekers in the world in recent years. And when you look at these asylum seekers, most of them are not genuine asylum seekers. They are economic migrants who seek to regularize their stay in South Africa by using the avenue of asylum. In that way, they then present a challenge for genuine asylum seekers and for our asylum management systems, in that they clog up the asylum management system and make it difficult for us to expedite the adjudications for genuine asylum seekers and therefore to accord them their rights, to confer them their rights to which they are entitled. So it's an enormous challenge for the country, and it reflects a gap in our legislation, in our policy framework, as well as the administrative systems that we have as a department.
How often do you conduct these raids?
The raids are conducted regularly, not only against undocumented migrants, but also against South African businesses that are illegally employing undocumented foreign nationals or those who do not have the work permits. Because it could be that you are in South Africa on one form of visa and you are therefore not required to be working in another environment. Recently, the department has raided an individual who was in the country on a different visa but found himself employed somewhere else where he did not have the necessary authorization to be employed. And so we conduct them. But the challenge we face is the inadequacy of personnel, of the inspectors, immigration inspectors who are going to conduct the raids on a consistent basis. But secondly, you do not want in your actions to be viewed to be targeting foreign nationals and harassing them. So you need to be circumspect in how you are conducting this to ensure that you do not violate the human rights of the people who are in the country, whether they are documented or undocumented, because they have human rights, and South Africa operates on a human rights ethos. But secondly, as I say, the big challenge is the inadequacy of the personnel in the department and the resources required to be able to deal with this challenge on a regular basis.
I want us to talk to the statistics, perhaps, of the arrests that were made, in particular on that day, or at the premises which we were present. Nationalities and the number of arrests. On that particular day, Malawian, 21, which means there's a lot of Malawian nationals who are working there. Chinese, 12. And most of the Chinese ones are actually the owners of the businesses that were there, and one Pakistan. The perception out there, and I had a conversation with one Sylvia Busimatona, who is an official of the Department of Home Affairs, saying, you guys in the media, you don't come, when we conduct these raids, and the perception out there is that we're only targeting African undocumented foreign nationals, whereas we targeting across the board. But this perception exists. If you and I were to just walk freely around Johannesburg, chances are, because of our complexion, we'll be asked for passports.
Speak for yourself.
You see, but a white undocumented foreign national is likely to go through.
In actual fact, that is a perception to some extent which is informed by reality, because many of the raids that we conduct are targeted first at African immigrants, secondly at your Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian and Chinese immigrants. But we have had instances where many European undocumented migrants or those who are in the country without necessary authorization have had to be deported. Some of them have been sent to Lindela, but most of them because they are well-to-do. They come to South Africa on the strength of more, of stronger foreign currencies. Yes. They are then able to negotiate to deport themselves. So all we do will be to hold the person, detain the person, and then send them to an airport where they will buy their own tickets and go back to their own countries. But it's a real perception. I think the fact of the matter is that the department, as your insert says, is the only department with the authorization to conduct these raids. And therefore, we would like, in the strongest possible terms, to discourage and even condemn vigilante actions. People must allow us, because as I say, we conduct the raids on a regular basis. We also know the categories of people in the country who have a right to conduct business. Now, people must therefore be dissuaded or discouraged from undertaking vigilante actions targeting the shops owned by foreign nationals, particularly African immigrants, because in large measure those would be documented, they would have a right to operate businesses, they would have been sold the houses or shops in which they operate by South Africans. And so we need not target them, but we need to take actions to regularize the small enterprise environment, to regulate the small enterprise environment and ensure that there are clear procedures and regulations under which they all operate.
I'm going to give you a yes or no option here. Are these foreign nationals abusing our immigration laws?
It's difficult to say yes or no. The overwhelming majority of foreign nationals in our country don't abuse our laws. Okay. The numbers that of people, including those who are undocumented, They come here as economic migrants. They seek jobs. They try to eke out a living. It's a challenge we need to deal with in terms of our legislative and policy framework and administrative systems. But the majority of them don't abuse our laws. The minority that do, unfortunately, get generalized as if it's all foreign nationals in South Africa who are abusing our laws and our systems. Okay. But we have the capacity and the will to take the necessary steps to deal with the abuses of our legislation where it happens, and that is evidenced by the immigration regulations that we announced in May 2014.
Okay, hold the thought there. I want us to take a quick break. When we return, let's talk about the immigration laws. There are certain aspects of the laws that you have put on hold. Let's talk about that only after the break. This is Question Time. Please don't go away.
This week we are taking you around the continent, telling you stories about what makes Africa, Africa.
We now head to the Kenyan coast, where we meet a man using needles to fight a growing drug culture.
A recent study revealed that there are 850 drug addicts in Diani alone, with over 220 using injectable drugs such as heroin.
In my community, I've seen a lot of these people suffer.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Our guest today is the Minister of Home Affairs, Malusi Gigaba. Now, Minister, the government should be losing a lot of money, or not losing, but using a lot of money to deport the undocumented ones, those that are not supposed to be here in the country and those that need to be taken back.
Yes, indeed, it's quite true. It's enormous volumes of money that we spend on deportations, because in some instances, the people we deport return to the country, still without documents, still using irregular means to enter the country. So it becomes a revolving door. But we have to continue to the extent that we can until we have a complete solution as we are busy putting up. The first one is the Border Management Agency, to re-establish our borderline, to revitalize the physical infrastructure at our ports of entry so that we are able to operate our borderline as well as the ports of entry in an efficient manner and in an integrated manner. Secondly, we cannot, as the department or as South Africa, manage international migration on our own, particularly immigration. We therefore need to partner with our neighboring countries to ensure that we manage their nationals. You see, when you consider the fact that South Africa has a visa exemption, a 90-day visa exemption with all our SADC neighbors, with the exception of the DRC and Angola, it means that there shouldn't be a person who enters South Africa without documents, particularly from Southern Africa. If you look at the numbers of people who apply for asylum in South Africa, we have found that the overwhelming majority of them, about 95% of people applying for asylum in South Africa, are actually economic migrants. And of those, about 49% are SADC nationals. People who have a right to enter South Africa without a visa, but because they do not have passports from their homes, they are unable, therefore, to travel to South Africa using our ports of entry. It becomes difficult for them to regularize their stay in South Africa. But if you go to a port of entry like Beitbridge, which just last year processed the entry and exit of about 39 million travelers, both South Africans as well as Zimbabweans, Malawians, and others from the north of South Africa. It tells you that the majority of people in our region enter and exit South Africa using our regular ports of entry as documented migrants, and therefore they are of economic benefit to South Africa because they come here to buy, to spend their money, to entertain themselves, or even to visit.
But others, Minister, are not doing that. I mean, why would an Ethiopian seek political asylum in South Africa?
Because there is a political instability in their country. Now, what our legislation does, as I indicated, it's based on a human rights ethos. Any person, and we are signatories to the Geneva Conventions of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Anybody who comes to South Africa and present themselves as an asylum seeker, we are duty bound to grant them an asylum permit and to interview them, to determine the veracity of their application, and therefore to determine their status, whether they are indeed asylum seekers or they are not. If they are not, we then have to deport them. But the abuse of our systems arise first from the large volumes of economic migrants, but secondly, they arise from the large numbers of people who come here to make completely, blatantly false claims. And therefore you have to interview them. Once you decide that they are not genuine asylum seekers, they then take you through the processes of appeals that can drag on for months and for even years.
Yes.
And so they stay in the country, they are able to do a whole number of things. But we are trying to close those loopholes. And that is why I'm saying the best way for South Africa to manage international migration is to cooperate with our neighbors in the region and on the continent as a whole.
Let's talk about Swaziland issue. The Dlaminis, who are found across the border of Swaziland, they have relatives. The chief lives in South Africa part, right? They go to Swaziland, that's home. Come to South Africa to get letters from the chiefs that verifies that indeed these are my subjects. They can go to Home Affairs and therefore get documentation and come get social grants, then go back to Swaziland. How are you dealing with such issues?
Those issues will be dealt with through a number of interventions that we are going to implement. One of them is we are going to audit the National Population Register. So I want to put it out there in public that we will conduct an audit of the National Population Register, and those found to be possessing South African documents when they do not deserve to be there are going to face the might of the law. Their documents are going to be terminated, and they will not be liable for the smart ID card. The smart ID card system is also a solution because you have to represent yourself at Home Affairs to apply for this document. So there are two types of people who don't deserve to be holding South African documents. It's those who possess forged green barcoded ID documents, and those who entered the National Population Register fraudulently. Those two types of people are going to be dealt with, including those involved in marriages of convenience, those involved in forged fraudulent marriages. All of those people will be flushed out of the system, and we will remain with South Africans. How foolproof is the audit? It's something that we will determine when we agree on the system that we are going to utilize in order to audit the NPR. But thirdly, we need to deal with the problem the problem of our neighboring countries, because it's a colonial legacy. And South Africans need to value and cherish their identity and their citizenship. It is a way to protect them, and it's a way for them to access their rights, to which their socio-economic rights, to which they are entitled in terms of Section 2 of our Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And so we need to ensure that as South Africans, we become conscious in how the chiefs, the priests, and the school principals, in how they must not write letters of supporting recommendations for people who are not South Africans, but who are fraudulently claiming South African citizenship.
Hold the thought there. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll wrap up the program. This is Question Time. Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Malusi Gigaba, the Minister of Home Affairs, is our guest today. Now, Minister, as part of innovation, you have introduced the smart cards or the smart card IDs, but also you're saying that people will be able to get some of these facilities at the banks.
Absolutely.
Why are you outsourcing your service to institutions which some are not very happy with?
We are not outsourcing the service, we are partnering with them, because the banks will not charge you anything for for your application. Each bank is going to offer this service to its clients. It's part of their way to extend the services that they offer to their clients. We are taking advantage of that partnership. I must say that we really, seriously, very profoundly appreciate the consent from the banks to partner with us in this, because they are going to assist us to expand our footprint. They will ensure that they will reduce the volumes of people that we have to serve in the offices of Home Affairs by sharing those volumes, and thereby enhancing the process of e-government. And there are a number of other interventions that we are going to introduce. Since we made this announcement through the President in the State of the Nation address, we've had two other banks, Itala and African Bank, coming forward to say we also want to be part of this system. And so banks are itching to start providing this service. And I think that we're making South Africa a better country in terms of, it's a good story to tell in terms of government services.
Does it mean that you're going to have Home Affairs personnel within the banks and their kiosks, so to say?
What it means is that the banks are going to provide us with the requisite resources to provide this service, and where necessary, we will provide our own officials to be able to undertake those services. But the most important thing is that the systems that we utilize are going to be integrated, which means that your application at the bank is going to be exactly the same as the application you undertake at a smart ID card dedicated office, in that it will be electronic, paperless. There is not a piece of paper that you are going to fill in order to apply for your smart ID card.
Okay. Now, perhaps this then takes me to immigration laws. Fathers are complaining out there that the laws favor women when a man has to travel with his or her, with his child or children. They would normally require more than they would if it was the mother. Are we going to see some changes as this transformation of the laws here?
The new regulations impose an obligation on both parents to seek the consent of the other if they are to travel with the child. So there is no particular parent who's being favored. Even women are complaining because many of them say we are single mothers. Now, where do we find the fathers of the children who've never looked after them before to seek their consent? And in those cases, we're saying there are solutions. If you've been a single mother, it means that at the time you registered your child for a birth certificate, you recorded yourself alone as the parent. You did not include the father. The challenge arises where parents are now separated or divorced, in which case what we suggest is that if they cannot find consent in terms of the joint application for the child passport and the unabridged birth certificate, plus the letter of consent from the other parent for the other to travel with the child, a parent must approach the High Court to seek an interdict, which will provide that relief to the affected parent, because the High Court is the final authority on matters involving the rights of the child. The Department of Home Affairs cannot arbitrate between fighting parents and thereby place itself at the center of internal family feuds. Those are issues which must be resolved by the courts, because if we don't, if Mpo or Malusi wants to travel with his child and the mother of the child had not consented and there is no court order that I can travel with the child, the parent who is aggrieved will then approach the court and seek either an interdict or sue the Department of Home Affairs for having allowed their child to travel without their consent.
Very good that you raised the suing part, because your department has been, I think you were sued for 100 million or so in the past financial year due to bad service and all that. Quickly, as we conclude, how do you commit that such is not going to happen? Well, not suing, but that the service is going to improve.
It's actually not for bad service. I think the people who wrote that article were being malicious and deliberately lying. Because at the end of the day, if you come and you find one person being beaten up, you don't ask them, when are you going to stop being beaten up? We don't sue ourselves. We don't take ourselves to court. It's the people who are aggrieved because we have terminated their services, who feel that they need to continue having this service even though we don't need them. We can provide a service to any South African willing to travel abroad or to any foreign national wishing to have a South African a visa of any sort. And so those whose services have been terminated, we are not saying that they must stop their service. We are only saying they must stop their service with us. They can continue providing that service to their clients, and that is their issue. But for any foreign national who wishes to get a South African permit, they need to apply for it in person so that we know who they are, we interview them. And so that those angry private service providers, I think they need to take their issues away. So long as they challenge the department and take it to court, we are not going to lie down and die. We will go and challenge them.
Mr. Malusi, thank you very much, and all the best, because indeed you've got some very dedicated men and women there, but also some bad apples too.
That's why we're arresting them.
That was Question Time for today. A big thank you to you for watching the show. Our email address for feedback, questiontime@sabc.co.za, our Twitter handle @questiontime24. You can also follow me @Mpotsedu. Let's discuss this matter further. From me and the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.